Morning, everyone. Members, guests, welcome to Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. The invocation this morning will be given by Jimmy Sutphin.
Happy New Year, everybody. Today, never boast about what you will do tomorrow, for you do not know what tomorrow may bring. I read some research by psychologist William Morton, who reports that 94% of the 3,000 people we surveyed were enduring today in order to get to tomorrow. Do you know anyone like that? Perhaps I'm one of those. Tomorrow, I'm going to go on vacation. Tomorrow, I'm going to get to the house and clean it. Tomorrow, I'm going to start that new diet. Tomorrow, I'm going to balance the checkbook. Hot dog. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. Sometimes I seem to think to operate under the slogan, never do anything today that you can put off until tomorrow. And I think there's a little bit of that in all of us. The only problem is tomorrow never arrives. When it gets here, it's today. And today is tomorrow that I worried about yesterday. It's always today, act accordingly. And all God's people said, Amen.
To lead us in the pledge and four-way test, Tom Page.
How do I follow up on that? I don't know. Do it tomorrow. I'm going to do it today, which is tomorrow. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, the four-way test of the things that we think, say, or do. First, is it true? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, fourth,
Thank you, Tom. And to lead us in song this morning, Dick Pearsall.
It's time for some New Year's resolutions. Mine is going to be to remember to wear my name tag. And I just thought maybe we could start off with singing When You're Smiling, because that's a good idea, have a smile on your face. So let's go. When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you. When you're laughing, the sun comes shining through. But when you're crying, that brings on the rain. Don't quit your sighing. Be happy again, 'cause when you're smiling, the ending, the whole world smiles with you. Sort of makes us smile. Okay.
And look at that, he's using two hands to direct now. And our president, Allison Feaster.
Thanks, Ron. Welcome back, everybody, especially in this lovely weather as people slid into the parking lot. So congratulations for being brave enough to be here today. So who's making a difference?
We are.
How are we making a difference?
Lighting up Rotary.
Together. Excellent. Lighting up Rotary together. By the end of my term, we'll have this all down, and you get to start with a new one. I know. It's a challenge, Tom. Today is National I'm Not Going to Take It Anymore Day. So I want Rich to keep that in mind when he talks to us about taxes and laws. Next, our Secretary, Chris Barker, will announce our guests.
Good morning, fellow Rotarians.
Good morning.
We have a lot of guests with us today, and if they would please stand when I call their names so that we can give them a nice Rotary welcome. From the service learning class, we have Julia Snodgrass and Samantha Soltheis. And then we have Angela Hairston, wife of John Hairston, joining us today. We have Jim McKee from Northampton Rotary. Good morning. And Evan McCauley is with us again. And then we have Bob Haydorn, Assistant Governor for the Rotary Cluster.
Good morning.
Good morning. Jim Coe, President-elect from Cuyahoga Falls Rotary.
Good morning, Jim.
And Matt LaFountain, son of Art LaFountain. Good morning. And then we have Gary Sawyer, secretary for the Clock Tower Rotary Club. Good morning.
Thank you, Chris. Jimmy, I know you have a mouthful of food, but I hate to tell you it's time for the recognition celebration committee report.
Thank you, President Allison. Happy New Year again. I watched Hudson Cable last week, and what a treat it was to watch and hear Duncan Tanner, "'Twas a Rotary Christmas." Again, wow. That's what I would call a tough act to follow. And he concluded with the service above self, the famous Rotary one-liner. Duncan, you do nice work. We also, once a month, like to recognize at least $1. We recognize when people have joined our Rotary Club, and Stu Murray and Carl Withers are both transfers, and both in the year 2009. So, welcome to Hudson Rotary. And then, I don't think, is Craig Tallman here? Okay, but he joined our club. George Snyder was his sponsor in 2012. And then, to celebrate birthdays, how about Carl Withers? He's not here. And Chris Barker is here. Her birthday is January 7th? Oh. My secretary did a lousy job. Anyway, we have to sing happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you, and many more.
Thanks, Jimmy. Now are we ready? Cue up the music. Our Sergeant at Arms is in its position. Rotary Jeopardy! I will give the clue, and you will have to be the first to give the correct response in the form of a question. Raise your hand, and Ron will recognize you. He's fast. All righty. Divergent interests range from fly ash to rehab counseling to cake decorating for this bionic Rotarian. Divergent interests range from fly ash to rehab counseling to cake decorating for this bionic Rotarian. And I talked to her last night and she said nobody would get it. Ron?
Bill. Me? Liz. Who is Liz? Who is Liz?
Yay! And I have a gift for you. I'll pull it out after we swear in. John wants to get ready. You want to come up? Duncan, am I glad to see you? Oh, Dexter, am I glad to see you? I did it. I have been so good. You guys look alike, that's the problem. All righty.
Much more than me and John.
That's right. All righty. I've redone the oath to make it shorter, so I'll read it and then your response should be a yes, okay? Just to clue you in. Rotary is an international organization of business and professional people pledged to uphold the highest ethical and moral standards to improve our local community and to achieve the ultimate goal of world understanding and peace. John Hairston, do you accept membership in the Rotary Club of Hudson, and as a Rotarian agree that you will abide by the principles of Rotary, that you will fulfill the Rotary motto of service above self, and will build goodwill and better friendships by participating in our fundraiser efforts, service projects, and social programs.
Yes.
On behalf of our Board of Directors, fellow Rotarians, it is my pleasure to welcome you as the newest member of the Rotary Club of Hudson. So if you would present his badge. If you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you, President.
Hey, Allison, how about it? Thank you.
Just a brief words. I would like to thank now I would say the brothers of Rotarians. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of the organization. I look forward to giving the organization 100%, and just hopefully I can be a great asset to this organization, and I'm grateful. Thank you so much, and God bless everyone.
And I have your gift for Rotary Jeopardy. It's Tabasco Red Hot Jelly Beans. Seems appropriate.
Just what I need. Thank you. Thank you, Allison. Oh, thank you.
All right, now we're ready for Duncan.
Those ones that your granddaughter didn't want?
No, I bought these special.
Well done.
Are they good?
Well done. Good morning, Rotarians. A reminder, no whining, no complaining, no eye rolling, particularly this morning, because we didn't do this in December, so we have a 2-month conglomerate of fines. This could take quite a while. November's take was $108. The beneficiary was Backpack Buddies. So thank you so much for supporting a good group. Folks, today's beneficiary will be the Krista Barker Fund at Morgan Bank. And that's that. Category number 1, I can't believe I did that. Joe Avella. Where are you, Joe? Yes, Joe? Everybody wanted to thank you for volunteering last November at the Boy Scout camp cleanup. They just wanted to remind you to actually show up in time to do some cleaning. Yeah, and not just to enjoy that, that meal that they put out. Joe, that's $2. Ron Strobel. At the November 5th meeting, Ron made it a point, rather vociferously, as only Ron can, to remind us that last year, Tucker's Titans led the pack for the 2013 fall fundraiser. We are all better off knowing that, Ron, and please don't think that anyone here is enjoying the fact that right now you owe us $2. Tom Page. Tom, obviously distracted by the pressure you're under as a co-chair of the recently completed and very successful Roses and Caramel Corn campaign. You deserve to be forgiven for talking during the November 19th history presentation. You deserve to be forgiven, but you won't. $2. Catherine. Oh, you're standing up. That makes it so much easier. Hi, Catherine. Catherine, thank you for being a greeter today. Was there a challenge with the badge? There you go. Fee for being a rebel, $2. Thank you. A quick show of hands, and please be honest with me. Who made some kind of a New Year's resolution? Come on. Oh, yeah, chickens. Nobody made a New Year's resolution. Lose a little weight, be nicer to people, drive slower, cut out the pancakes and the bread. Come on. Well, that's $1 for all of you for being fibbers. I'm sorry. Just get it out right now. And category number 2, come on, $1, please. Category number 2, let's do a little self-policing. If you don't have a badge, if you don't have a pin, If you didn't buy a raffle ticket, give me $1. There we go. Good. You see how good that feels? All right. Folks, in honor of 2015 and our first meeting of the new year, I would like to announce a new category. Before we enter publicity hounds, we have a special category simply called Rich Warfield. Folks, it almost filled up a page. And I'm not sure where to begin. I'll just try to touch on the highlights. Yeah. Rich, it's going to be a total of $5, so if you get a chance to put the fork down and grab a fin, we'll be good to go. This just happened. I don't know if anybody looked on your table. Just a little packet of tax-related information from Rich. How do we know it's from Rich? There's his picture on the first page. It gets better. I went all the way back to the September 12th hub and found a picture of the Chamber of Commerce golf outing. And there was Rich, looking healthy, triumphant, and part of a team that scored a magnificent 16 under par. Rich, this is all part of the 5 you just paid, so we're good to go. And because Rich was really on point, a November 2014 hub ad has you interestingly beating a Dr. Linda Sedilek from Bella Eye Care and Brian Bishop from Bishop Financial in an NFL betting pool. Didn't know the betting was legal in Hudson, but congratulations on the victory. Again, you're covered with the 5. Did Superintendent Extraordinaire Phil Herman make it today? He did not. Phil, there's a great shot of you presenting a plaque to assistant football coach Jeff Brown in the November 2nd hub. I'm going to cut you some slack and make it $1 instead of $2 because I'm told Coach Brown was a class act. And it's a good commander who recognizes his troops. Speaking of troops, Phil, all 566 of your employees have helped create the 2nd largest school district in the county. Of course, only one of those 566 had his name appear in the Crane's Book 2015 lists. That was you, Phil. When you show up, $2. Carl Withers, according to the November 11th hub, you served our country in World War II as an Army Air Corps first lieutenant stationed in southern Italy. It's a good picture of a good man. Your fine is waived, Carl, and as a matter of fact, everybody in this room owes you. Bill Woldridge, David Basil, and Dan Williams, intrepid Rotarians and concerned city leaders, one and all. That's $2 for each of your quotes, albeit cogent and insightful, appearing in the November 19th hub article about Hudson City Council. Gail Royster. No Gail today? Okay. Is it possible, Gail, that we are all getting older while you grow younger? Great picture in the November 19th hub ad for the Royster Group, $2. Tom Tobin, I saw Tom earlier. Tom?
Yes, sir.
Ah, good to see you, buddy. Okay. Have you had a lucrative 2015 so far?
Yes.
Good. Okay. It's going to be $2 less lucrative. Congratulations on being recognized in the November Hudson Life issue for your and Gail's generous donation to the Hudson Community Tennis Center project. A worthy project supported by a dedicated philanthropist. The $2 goes without saying. Finally, and before we share happy news today, I present, for your edification and hopefully your entertainment, The Feinmeister, a history, a vindication, and a warning. In Tom Vince's seminal work, Hudson Rotary 75, A History of the Rotary Club of Hudson, page 36 is of particular import to your Feinmeister. In one of a number of fascinating and informative highlights that appear in the 2005 publication, the reader is treated to a brief review of the role of the Feinmeister in the history of the club and a partial list of those that have preceded yours truly. What struck me as particularly impactful and revealing was the following, I quote, Paul Younger, who joined Hudson Rotary in 1988, may have been responsible for extending the formula of fines beyond the traditional not wearing a pin, celebrating a birthday, or arriving late. He had no compunction about inventing new ways to fine members. To Paul, George Franchino, Richard Sakella, Phil Leiter, Jim McKay, and Rotary Finemeisters throughout the country and the world, I salute you. And in honor of them, $1 from each of you. Come on, $1, you can do it. And finally, please, a show of hands for happy news. Happy news to start the new year. Dick.
My son and granddaughter came here for my 90th birthday in December.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Come on. A happy group braving the elements to get here. There's no more happy news. Jeff, any happy news? That's good to know. Anybody else? Folks, happy 2015.
Thanks, Duncan, for another wonderful job. It makes me proud to be a Rotarian to see how everybody stepped up and supported Chris and her family. Welcome back, Chris. So now we're ready for our featured, no, wait, I almost forgot. Bob Haydorn is here. He walked in with his broken foot in this terrible weather to be here, so he's going to give you an update on the cluster clubs. Come on up. We're going to make him pay for being assistant governor.
Yeah, I've been paying a long time, actually. Well, greetings, everyone. I'm here to help you celebrate National Let's Help the Handicapped Day. But yeah, there's a point in time when you have to just realize that you can't do some of the things that your mind is telling you can do. One of the things that I figured out very quickly is I can't get to that tennis ball quite like I used to. But it seems like just what an inconvenience this is. It's amazing how bad it is. And yet to say that I'm supposed to come up here for a meeting at 7:15 on a sub-zero day and all those sorts of things. I'm amazed that you all are here and that you are doing your normally really good meeting as you always do. I'm always amazed every time I get up here to find that you have such a wonderfully structured meeting, a great deal of humor, and are so well prepared every single time I've been up here without fail. So I just want to say on behalf of one representative of the cluster, congratulations, you guys do a really good job. Well, I'm also here to say that the cluster is alive and well. We are, in fact, doing our very best to promote the interests of everybody. Five of us in this cluster, you, the Clock Tower Club, Stowe, Northampton, and Cuyahoga Falls. And everybody except for Stowe is here in one fashion or another with a representative. Stowe has a meeting exactly at the same time as this, and they somehow insist that they should be at their meeting. So we'll forgive them, what the heck. And I'm here just to tell you a little bit about what's going on. As far as the cluster is concerned, our big project for this year is the Battered Women's Shelter Project, which you've heard, I hope, a lot about. We basically are having a cluster project to donate both our time, talent, whatever there is of that, and money to helping to facilitate the new Battered Women's Shelter facility in downtown Akron, near really what used to be Goodyear, down in that same, well, I guess it still is, but down in that same area around Kelly Avenue. And the new Battered Women's Shelter is an effort on their part to increase their capacity. I don't know if you know about it, but the truth is that That problem is a big problem, and it's a problem that even affects every socioeconomic structure that we have. Even here in Hudson, I looked at the statistics last night. If you look at the statistics for 2013, it appears that Hudson has a clientele needing that service from the battered women's shelter to the tune of its, I believe, 12th of 58 zip codes that are served by that facility. So, as you can see, it's the problem's here in Hudson too. And the Akron facility is all you got to help solve that problem. So this is a reason for all of us to be concerned and to do something about this. So what we are doing is we have a project which has been approved by the district for a grant of $3,500. Finally, you're getting some money back from the district, right? And $3,500, which is going to be supplemented by contributions from the rest of the cluster. And there has been also a $500 anonymous donation from a person in Cuyahoga Falls, Cuyahoga Falls Rotary. And so what we need basically from the rest of the clubs is $6,500 to make up a $10,500 project. And for that, we are going to help rebuild, as we already have, a certain amount of the battered women's shelter. We're also going to, for that, buy furniture for more than one room there, and we're going to assemble that furniture. Excuse me. And for doing that, we will receive a room dedicated to our efforts. For the North Summit cluster, there will be a room so designated, and with a plaque on it and whatever. But the important thing is that there's going to be a fully operating facility with our help, the battered women's shelter. Now, I'm not going to go over the money terms. I know you're still considering what you're going to give to this effort. Your board will hear all those money terms that I'm sure your president will be well familiar with. But again, we are hoping that everybody will pull their weight in this particular effort. And then we are also trying to put together something by way of Rotary Days. As you know, May 16th has been designated, or thereabouts, Rotary Day. And that's because RI President says we have to designate May 16th as Rotary Days. So everyone is trying to figure out what to do, hopefully as a cluster, but even so, partially as a cluster perhaps, working on some activity to celebrate Rotary and get it out in the community. You'll probably be hearing more about that. I know your club and the Hudson Clock Tower Club are thinking perhaps of going together on that activity, and the other three clubs in the cluster will probably be doing Heroes Day with the Stowe Club, where we go out and do work, landscape work and whatever for veterans, handicapped veterans in our own communities on May 16th, thereabout. We're also trying to develop a project, hopefully a grant project, again for next year. Pat Myers will take over my job. She's in the Hudson Clock Tower Club, and she's going to be the assistant governor next year, and I'm hoping to try to put together some sort of a project for her and the cluster, basically because these projects are a good thing. They're a good thing because we get to know one another, and we get to do things together so that we can learn from one another. We can, as a cluster, then know that Rotary's bigger than just our own individual club. We get to know a lot of great people. On the Battered Women's Shelter Project, Chris Barker and her husband, Curtis, were out there representing your club, did a one hell of a lot of work. Excuse my language. But seriously, very, very happy to have them. We got to know them, and we're just, again, there are so many Rotarians out there that you can know that are wonderful people that may be a member of another club, and you can learn by being around them, going to their meetings as we do now, go to as many kind of functions as we can coordinate. The cluster is a good thing, and it's one way that you can become more than just your own club. So that's a little bit of what we're doing. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. Now, are you ready? Rich was going to have Gail introduce him, and of course, we know she's, hi Gail, have fun in Florida, that he just gave me his bio. Now, first of all, I can't read it because the print is so small. So I thought I would ask Rich to introduce himself by telling you what he's president of, and I think we all know he's president of Warfield and Company, accountant. But I'm going to ask him to tell you a little bit about his experience in all these organizations, including past president of our club and past treasurer for the Rotary Club Foundation. So, Rich.
Thank you. Thank you. $2? Okay. I'm sure Duncan will remember next time around. Just before I get into my bio, I just want to let you know we hired a fine young fella by the name of Duncan Tanner III. Yes. And he's just, it's the old acorn theory. He doesn't, a lot of similarities there between Pops and him. And he had let me know that last week that that poem, that very short poem that Duncan read to us, a very elegant poem, that Duncan Tanner III had to listen to that for about an hour over and over and over. That's
in exchange for food and shelter.
And I think, what was Dick Pearsall, what did you want to do different in 2015? Remember the songs? Is that what you wanted to do? I would just like to do a better job at remembering people's names. I think we all tend to forget people's names, and as we get older, that's a common error that we make. But for example, Phil Tobin. You got your badge? I listened to a really impressive speaker at the Stowe Chamber of Commerce a few months ago by the name of Marvin Montgomery. Has anybody heard him? Marvis Marv. And he talked about how impressive it is to remember people's names. And what he does is he'll repeat someone's name 3 times, as we need that repetition in our brains to try to remember people's names. For example, if Phil Tobin came up and said, "Hi, I'm Phil," and I would say, Phil, what is your last name?" And he would say, "Phil Tobin." And I said, "Phil Tobin, it's very nice to meet you." In that short little exchange, he has said, or I've said his name at least 3 or 4 times. So you ever walk away from meeting someone, you're like, oh my goodness, I don't remember his name. So give it a practice, give it an opportunity. Let the person say his first name, and then if he doesn't say his last name, say, "Phil Tobin, I'd like to," whatever, "Phil, I'd like to know your last name." So anyway, into what we're here to talk about. Well, before I get into that, my short bio, I think a lot of people know, a lot about myself, so I don't want to spend a lot of time. I've been on a lot of different boards. When I moved to Hudson in 1994, I asked my marketing person at that time, what should I be doing? And they said the first thing you want to do is join the local Chamber of Commerce in your area you moved to. So I joined the Hudson Chamber of Commerce, became president 6 years later, was president for 2 years. Gwen Ragsdale, there's a name out of the past, moved to Arizona, so I took over almost 3 months into her president term. And the name got exposure, good, bad, or indifferent. And then I went on to, somebody talked me into joining the Hudson Community Foundation for some reason. And 8 or 9 years later, here I am still on that board, maybe not as active as I used to be. And then someone taught me in by the name of Paul Mouget. Is that how you say it? Mouget? There's a name. Taught me into being a Rotarian in 2006. So it's all about getting active in your community. If, obviously, your employment, your work opportunities, and your family allows you to get active. Jeffrey Tong back there has 3 boys. 2 boys? 3 boys? 3. He does the best he can do. He has to drop the kids off at school and blah, blah, blah. What's that? 3 as far as you know? Well, in this area, he has 3. But, so he has to go down to, what is it, North Canton? North Canton? Akron. And, so anyway, we do the best we can to get here and be part of our organization. So you can all read that. I put the whole list of bios in there for everybody that works for me. The firm is continuing to grow. And behind that is a peer review, which we had to go through every 3 years. CPA firms that do review audits or compilations, generally accepted accounting principles, not tax basis compilations, have to go through a peer review. That means big brother's looking over us to make sure we do things right. And when we issue financials, you certainly want a CPA that does things right, because it's your financials out there in the marketplace. So enough said about that, but we just received a passing letter from our peer reviewer out in the Toledo area. The next sheets, or set of sheets behind that, is Public Law 113-295. Was passed on December 19th. Obviously, you know, it passed the House first, and then the Senate kicked around and passed that, and then President Obama signed it. And he said, you know what? I'm not signing a 2-year extender. No way. No way. We need a complete overhaul of our tax system. If you read right up above, it says to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to extend certain expiring provisions. By the way, they've expired. And make technical corrections to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986. I graduated from Kent State in 1983. And in 1986, there was a complete overhaul of the code, if you remember, for some people that were around at that point. The prior code that we depended on was 1954. And I know Matt, back in the crowd, Art's son, he used to be in public accounting, so he knows all about this. He just left public accounting to go into financial advisory services, and he just misses his stuff already. So what's the difference between 86 and 54? Last time I counted, 32 years, correct? And how many years has it been since 1986? 28? So they want a complete overhaul. The code has become so, it's the volume of the code, the complexity is so extreme now. I mean, everybody's saying, why should I hire an accountant to do my taxes? It's not fair. I can't afford an accountant. Well, those people that are a little bit wealthier in the world can afford an accountant, because there's a lot of different tax laws. And when you hear about these people that are interviewed, 10 different CPAs, and they come up with 8 different answers, because there's a lot of gray area in the code. Okay, it doesn't mean that they're all, dumb, or somebody wants to take a different position. It's just that the code allows you to take a different position. And some people are more aggressive than others on taking an aggressive position, or a position for their taxpayers. So going through this, as you can see, this was passed on December 19th. Behind the 3 pages of the tax extenders, I put a tax Kiplinger letter in there that was sent on January 2nd. And a lot of this talks about the Health Care Act provisions, which a lot of them are kicking in 2015. And a lot of these health care provisions affect large employers, not small employers. There are some provisions that affect small employers, or employees of small employers. And I'm not going to bore you to death, but there's a few pages I want to go over with that. I'm just giving you a general outline of what I'm going to cover here. Behind that is a tax Kiplinger letter that was issued December 19th that talks about the law that's coming down the pipeline and the provisions that's changed there. These are really easier reads, so that's why I put them in there for you. Stuff that you can, hey, Joan, I'm taking this to bed. Instead of reading my novel, would you like to hear about the tax Kiplinger letter? Things that you might be able to understand at your level. And then the last thing is I want to share with you a provision in the Ohio Code that Kasich passed, and I brought this up to what's our lady, our local lady, when she was, I'm sorry? Yes, brought this exclusion for S-Corps partnerships, and Christina. I brought this up, and I was wondering what they're going to do for 015, and I'll get into that last. So I have 15 more minutes, so I'm going to get right into it and try to stay awake. I know those pancakes are starting to hit, Tom. So, the first set of extenders relates to the individual code section, and a lot of people were thinking, whether these things are going to get extended or not. By the way, they've expired. December 31st, they've already expired. Obama said, I'm only going to sign a 1-year extension. 2 years, nope, not going to happen. So the first provision is, and I'm not going to go through all these because some of these, they don't apply to us, okay? But they had to be extended. School teachers, I guess Catherine, and if Phil was here, and you can pass this down the pipeline, the $250 miscellaneous deduction for school supplies that you're out of pocket. Ooh, that was a big one. $250 times, let's say you're in the 15% tax bracket. That was a huge tax savings right there. But they extended it. Now you can deduct you can continue to deduct $250 it's a deduction to adjusted gross income, not from. Meaning it's not an itemized deduction, it's a deduction above the line. We call it above the adjusted gross income. So Phil, what does that mean? It also reduces your Ohio taxable income. The tax exclusion for, forgive me, I gotta take my glasses off, for imputed income from discharge of indebtedness for principal residence. I had a client down in Columbus. He unfortunately is very ill late in life, and he is upside down in his mortgage. And he's going to have to default. So what does that mean? It says principal residence down in Columbus. In 2014, not 15 by the way, this is all expired. If he would default on his mortgage and he would have forgiveness of debt, a lot of people have heard of that expression, it wouldn't be income up to $2 million. That was extended through the end of last year. Most likely it's going to continue to get extended, as a lot of us in this room know, but for now it's just through 2014. The equalization of the tax exclusion of employer-provided commuter transit and parking benefits, I'm not really going to spend much time on that. If any, the tax deduction for mortgage interest premiums, that's if you had, and I think Chris Barker knows what I'm talking about, if you have PMI on your mortgage, I believe that means if you put less than 10% down, you can continue to deduct the PMI insurance. Okay, that expired at the end of last year also. The deduction for state and local general sales tax in lieu of state and local income taxes. Basically, there's a calculation that says, okay, it usually applies to people that don't own a house or really don't work, they're more retired. There's a general sales tax table that if that amount exceeds the amount that you pay to RETA in the state of Ohio, either through withholdings or through estimated tax payments or for balances due, you get to take the general sales tax. That's been extended. Contribution, the deduction for contributions of real property in conservation purposes. I don't believe anybody in this room has that issue, so I want to pass on that. The deduction for qualified tuition and related expenses. Remember, there's tax credits. There's the lifetime learning credit, and there's another U.S. opportunity tax credit. But those tax credits phase out after a certain AGI, adjusted gross income. So in lieu of taking those two credits, there was that deduction up to $4,000. Well, you still get that through 12/31/2014, but you have to weigh, do I take the deduction or do I take the credits? What's my adjusted gross income? All that is they extended it for up to $4,000 college education deduction. The credits were still in place, the deduction, also a deduction to adjusted gross income, not from. The next provision, this is one that probably hits home to Hudson Community Foundation and a lot of people in this room. The tax exemption of distributions from individual retirement accounts for charitable purposes. As Phil knows, this expired. They extended it. Dan and Jim are in the room too. That's up to $100,000 that you can roll from your IRA directly to the charity without having paying taxes. Is that correct, Phil? Yep. If you're over a certain age, you can do that. They've extended that through 12/31/2014. I'm sure people were jumping on it anyway, knowing that was going to be extended, or maybe a whole bunch of contributions came in from December 19th till the end of the year. I'm not sure. I'm not on that end. But as far as the business tax extenders, and I'm not going to bore you to death on these, the biggest ones, and you can cross out if you want, because I don't know anybody in the room that really cares about the authority for issuance of qualified zone academy bonds. The classification of race horses as 3-year property for depreciation purposes. Anybody have horses, race horses? The treatment of regulated investment companies as qualified investment entities for purpose of the Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act. Subpart F, exemption for income derived in active conduct of banking, financing. Chris, you may want to look at that one. So there's a whole bunch of these provisions that don't really apply to us. The biggest ones on the employment side is the first one, or on the business side, is a tax credit for R&D. This country relies on R&D. A lot of employers do R&D all the time. There's IRS agents camping out, as Bill Woldridge would know, in big companies. They have an office in your company, whether it be Goodyear or whatever company it is, that they're looking at the R&D credit. Well, the R&D credit is a big credit for businesses, and also for my S-Corps that do R&D on a smaller level. That's been extended. Once again, it's expired already because it's 12/31. It's past 12/31. bonus depreciation in section 179. And that's also outlined in your Kiplinger letter, because I wanted you to understand more about it, is the bonus depreciation was phased out at the end of 12/31/13. That's 50% of whatever you buy. Hypothetically, if you buy some equipment for 10 grand, immediately 5,000 gets written off on your taxes, plus regular depreciation on top of that. Or you can take section 179. That 179 went down to 25,000, which is old tax law, old prior to George Bush being in the White House, because everything's like a rubber band. If it doesn't get passed or extended, it snaps back to the way it was, right, Phil? It snaps back. So SUVs are still at 25,000. So I know a lot of those financial advisors in the back room and doctors go out and buy SUVs the last week of the year. $60,000 car, you can write off 25,000 of it. And then you get to take regular depreciation on top of the 25,000. You could write off 35,000 of a $60,000 Escalade or SUV. By the way, it's got to be over 6,000 pounds. So, and all you have to do is just drive it for business the last week of the year. So, by the way, you would never see accountants do that, but we're too cheap. But Section 179 is back up to what it was, and well, through the end of the year. There's a whole bunch of small business owners that wanted to know, are these things going to get passed? I'm holding off on buying equipment. I need these tax deductions. Because what 179 and what bonus does, it entitles you to manipulate your taxable income. If you're on a cash basis, you got to pay for it by the end of the year. The only thing that you can deduct that's not on a cash, that when you're on a cash basis that's not on a cash basis, is if you accrue a retirement plan contribution at the end of the year, or if you pay for things on credit cards. Those are the two things that don't physically have to be paid for on a cash basis that you can accrue and still deduct. So anyway, those are huge provisions, the bonus and the 179. They will continue to be passed in one shape or form or the other because they spur our economy. People are always looking to write off equipment. So I don't know what else here that's really earth-shattering on the business side. Oh, the one thing, and you guys are probably thinking, what the heck is the reduction in the recognized period for the built-in gains of an S-Corp? Down at the bottom there, probably the fourth one down. It used to be if you flip from a C-Corp to an S-Corp, and people are thinking, why would I want to flip to an S-Corp when I'm a C-Corp? Well, if you're looking at doing a asset sale, not a stock sale, and you want to sell the assets inside a C-Corp, it's double taxation inside a C-Corp. Once at the C-Corp level, and then twice when it comes out in the form of a dividend or a wage to the shareholder. Well, if you flip to an S, make an S-Corp election, used to be you had to wait 10 years after you make that election to avoid the double taxation of a prior C-Corp. That is now down to 5 years. It doesn't say that in that little, it just says they extended it, the reduction. 5 years you have to wait to avoid the double taxation of flipping from a C to an S. That was done because, as Matt would know, people saying, well, I'll just make the S-Corp election right before I sell my assets. Well, the IRS is smarter than that. They're not going to let you make an S-Corp election and then sell the assets the next day and avoid the double taxation. That's what that provision is. Let's move along because I'm running out of time. Oh, by the way, how did you hurt your foot? Were you skiing?
No.
No?
Playing a great game of tennis.
Tennis, okay. All right.
Then I played another half an hour.
Another half an hour. Go. I'm sorry. And you lost? Read information on the health care in your own time. It's a lot of it's effective in 015, 016 in your tax Kiplinger letter that I gave you. And by the way, I looked at what I did last year, and I gave you the Kiplinger letter last year around this time. And then on page 2, there's the tax brackets. For you guys that try to do your own returns in pencil, or if you want to check your tax bracket, there it is. But let's go down a little bit further on page 2, and it says the 20% top rate on dividends and long-term gains start at a higher level for 2015. Singles with taxable income over 413, households over 439, and joint filers over 464. What that means is some of us know in this room that if we sell stock at capital gains, the 20% doesn't kick in until you're over those amounts. And then you also have to pay that lovely 3.8% in net investment tax. So if you're below those amounts, your effective rate is 18.8. If you're above those amounts when you file your returns, you're at 23.8. By the way, you're probably thinking, how does he remember all this stuff? A lot of this stuff is in the computer. It's already in the software. So if I need to look at it, if I need to find it out, I'll look it up. I used to remember all this stuff. The AMT exemptions are ticked upward a little bit for 015. What that means is these exemptions are help keep you out of AMT. A lot of people know what AMT is because it's catching more and more taxpayers that were not intended to be caught, either through the add back of state and local taxes, real estate taxes, or other preference and adjustment items. The next Kiplinger letter just talks about what was coming down the pipeline as I'm getting short on time, and I want to touch on one thing that's really important. If you look at the Kiplinger letter dated December 19th, it talks about pickups with loaded weights over 6,000 pounds can be fully expensed. That's where I'm talking about the $25,000 cap for SUVs and trucks and so forth, and bonus depreciation. That's all been extended. And as you can see above that, it talks about what I referred to with Phil, and Phil mentioned that 70.5 and older to make direct payouts from qualified from RAs to qualified charities. So a lot of this stuff is really cool stuff to read. I think it's written in a manner that you can understand it better than just by listening to me talk. The new unreimbursed business rate per mile is 57.5. Go figure this on the way the IRS works. Gas is going down, but the rate's going up. Okay, that makes sense. I know cars have got more expensive, but usually the rate goes up when gas goes up. So the new rate for 015 is 57.5. What that means is if you're working for an employer and you get reimbursed at cents per mile, that's what it is for 2015. Although when they say they bump that up, they've reduced the medical for those people that are incurring miles to go to the hospital and also to move. It went down to 23 cents a mile, I think, from 24. The last provision I want to talk about is the KSIC part of the law that was passed in 013, and I did an article and I put it in the Royster newsletter. Duncan, you can go ahead and find me for that comment. It talks about, and please, if your accountant's not doing this, bring it to my attention. I'll talk to you on the phone. I'll meet you. If you're an S Corp, partnership, or Schedule C, Schedule C is unincorporated business, and you have active trader business income, and that would be on either Schedule C of your page 1 of your 1040 or Schedule E, the line there. 75% of that number is backed out on your Ohio return, page 3. It's called the small investor deduction. Please, if your accountant's not doing that or you're not doing that, don't forget about it. We can also amend if you miss it too. It's a huge tax savings. It's maxed out at $250,000. So what does that mean? If you have $500,000 coming from an S Corp on your K1, the maximum you can exclude is $250,000, and then you've got to multiply $250,000 times 75%. So if you're below that $250,000, let's say you're at $200,000 K1, $150,000 of that K1 is backed out on your Ohio return. That's a huge savings. Multiply $150,000 times 5%. You got $7,500. That's huge, Bill. That's money in your pocket. And you heard this other fellow who was running against Christina that, that doesn't do anything for, they're just going to take their wives out to dinner. Excuse me, $7,500 is a lot of money. Maybe you can buy 4 computers, Maybe you can think about hiring an employee, and that helps. So in addition to that K1 number, there's another line item, and it's in your outline. It's basically on the last page. If you have W-2 income from that S Corp, which most of you do, or guaranteed payments from a partnership, you get to add back the wages that you paid yourself or any family members. A lot of my clients put their wives on payroll at the end of the year to do a $23,000 401k elective deferral plus a match. You get to back out that wage paid to her plus your wage. So when you're trying to figure out what your K1 number is, it's the starting point of your K1, the bottom line number, plus the wages you paid yourself and any family members. If you read in the Ohio Revised Code, any family members. That's substantial, because the reason why they let you add that back is because the wages are deducted to get down to that K1 number, the bottom line. So you get to add it back. Those are some serious dollars. Don't leave them on the table. So that concludes my presentation. I'm sorry, there's a lot to cover here, but I just wanted to get this stuff across to you. If you have any questions, you can give me a jingle. And anybody that wants to read the Tax Advisor, I read this once a month. Bill, you look like you're interested. I'll pass it on to you. So if there's any questions, 2 seconds to answer them. If not, then I think Ms. Allison Feister wants to do the Rotobuck. Any questions? Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rich. That's very, very helpful. So I want to conclude, first of all, by thanking our greeters, Catherine Sines and Ron Strobel, our AV team of Jimmy Sutphin, Ron Barnhouse, Tom Page, Larry Santon, James Field, and our 2 service learning students, thank you very much, Samantha Schulteis and Julia Snodgrass. Next week, Deborah Spake, Kent State University College of Business Administration will be our speaker. So now we need a Rotabuck drawing, so get your tickets ready. All right, so Larry picked the ticket number. What's the ticket number? It's not rigged, I promise you. So the payout is $11. That's a good investment from your $2. And you get to try the black marbles there. No, sorry. It looks black, but here's the black one. Here's the black one. All righty, have a wonderful week. Remember, service above self.